Hi everyone and welcome to FilmDirt. This is a fairly recent documentary I've only just caught. I've seen trailers for it pop up on my feed quite frequently, so I finally decided to catch it because I caught it on BBC4. And in the USA it's Amazon Prime I think, and maybe another network, I can't recall. But if you're in UK like me, it's either BBC4 or of course iPlayer. So this is Space, the Longest Goodbye. And on the BBC they've got it subtitled Voyage to Mars. So this is a very interesting documentary. Not perfect and not something you can digest too easily, but it's not really going deep into space travel itself, what I initially thought it was all about. It chronicles the space travellers that they've selected and trained to take part in a mission to Mars, to actually walk on the surface of Mars. And incredibly, that mission was supposed to be 3 years. That's a long time away from the Earth. So the main aim of this documentary is just to go into a deep study of the mindset of those travelling. What can you cope with? The psychological impact, and of course, mental health, which is so important, especially nowadays where it's more recognised and spoken about, as it should be. So this is a test mission, possibly to see how far they can test the limits of human progress with this, the mindset of it. Way back in 2010, I think it was, where in fact it was an actual mission to the International Space Station where the test rehearsal would take place. I think it was 8 months, they said, so it's still long enough, I think we'd agree. So this is not necessarily a space documentary, although there is scenes of space travel, and you kind of get the idea of what that will be like, sort of. And this kind of reminds me of some films. There's 2001 and also Interstellar, and both of those films cover what the documentary covers, in that there's a kind of robot that is supposed to help the travellers have someone to talk to. And back then it was as AI as you could get. And it also reminded me of Capricorn 1, which was about a fake mission to Mars, and they had to act it all out in a studio and not tell their family and friends. I covered that on this channel a short while ago as well. Very interesting film for what it is. So within the first 10 to 20 minutes, we know already that this is more about mental health and psychological preparation for such a huge mission. Imagine if it was actually 3 years for real. You land on Mars and you take a step out onto that red dusty surface. It's amazing, but imagine what the human will has to cope with to be able to travel that far away from family and friends. Now I'm wondering if I got the full gist of the NASA objective, because I don't think these people they selected fit the mission at all, because they're all got families. And the documentary does a really good job of showing the difficulty of spending so much time away. And not only that, but also discussing, the feelings of those people when they eventually have to come back to Earth. What's different, what's the same, has too much time passed. 3 years is a lot longer than we think it is when you're, in such a tiny capsule. And of course we get to see things like, hygiene, and that they're tempted to sometimes cover all the cameras, even though the cameras are their only link back to their home base where they're controlled from, because they're not really controlling themselves up on the space station. And because it's not in real time, they can't really have, a clear conversation if it were for real. In dealing with the prolonged isolation here, I didn't really like what they attempted to alleviate that stress, and that was the robot called Simon with a C, C-I-M-O-N. And that straight away reminded me of 2001's HAL, or those cuboid robots in Interstellar. Simon was like a football with a crudely drawn face on it. Some of the things it would come out with, wasn't it saying things like, please be nice to me, and why are you not nice to me? Don't you like it here with me? That would make me even more depressed than I already was. It's not helping me. And I'm struggling to see why they didn't make an even bigger thing of it. I definitely don't want my travelling companion to be Simon. If it was, I'll probably treat it like a football and boot it out into space. No thank you, not for me. I'd rather just sit there alone and be depressed. So it does outline a huge portion of this content into our mental health, and humans are fragile really. And also the other technique was a VR headset where you'd see, a digital representation of your partner. I don't like the sound of that either, but at least they're trying things to get communication into real time. We get that it's such a difficult mission, and bear in mind this was only a test for only 8 months. Your kids grow up very quickly in that time. So what do I know about the selection process? I'm sure NASA know what they're doing. If I was selecting, I would choose single people, childless people, not as much baggage. I'm not a psychotherapist or mental health counsellor. I'm not going to trick anyone to say that I'm going to offer some commentary on that on this channel, but I would have chosen different people, surely. I kind of got tired of it first half. I recall there was that little episode where NASA, valiantly freed a load of miners in Chile. And that wasn't really anything to do with the mission, even though it was at the same time. I just wanted more content on actual space travel, but it is quite a thorough look at the impact it has with families as well as the travellers. Quite a strong documentary in the end, really. I'll give it 4 stars. If it was just a little bit more focused on the actual space travel element and less of the family impact, which kind of made me depressed as well from just watching it, I think I would have enjoyed it more. Okay, thanks very much for joining me for this little look into this very interesting documentary, Space: The Longest Goodbye. Join me again for another documentary review or movie review. To do that, you can of course like and subscribe. Thanks again, speak to you next time, all the best, and take care.